Does anybody believe for a moment that Erika Kirk really wanted to sit down with Candace Owens? Does anybody, honest to God, have any doubt that Erika Kirk was made to meet with Candace Owens? To smooth things out, to have her stop this incessant question asking, which is going to affect donors and money and the people really in charge with TPUSA? Does anybody really believe that they're not going to jettison Erika, who, by the way, never say anything about her? I'm talking about her now as the dupe, not as the mother and the wife and the bereaved wife and the widow. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about her in this critical position. Because let me say this plainly at the top before anything, softer, I guess, helps missing the point. What happened in this sit-down was not a misunderstanding or a resolved controversy. It was a test of nerve and credibility and power, and Candace Owens passed it while everyone else revealed their limits, including Erika, who, I'm sorry, she is out of her league on this one. She may be a wonderful person and a sincere, great, but Candace Owens is a monster. I don't mean that in the negative sense, but I mean in terms of an intellectual monster. From the opening moments, she made clear she wasn't there to be managed or soothed or steered or assuaged. She was there because the questions were real and persistent and already beyond containment. And if Erika wants to supposedly announce a sit down, well, then by God, I'm going to be there. I'm not going to turn this down. That only explains why the meeting happened in the first place. Institutions like TPUSA don't invite people they can safely ignore. They invite people whose questions and whose inquiry and whose focus are spreading faster than the official answers, and whose refusal to back down threatens, again, this thing called narrative control. Candace Owens walked into that room already holding all the leverage, all the cards, because she didn't need the meeting to validate her inquiry. The inquiry was already alive, and that matters right now extremely critically because it sets the entire tone. Erika Kirk and Turning Point needed the meeting to slow the momentum, to calm donors and signal some kind of order or the semblance of order. And Candace needed only clarity. She didn't need this. And that imbalance, by the way, that decided everything before the first question and the first exchange. What gives Candace her power over anything else is not volume or theatrics. It's discipline. She listens. She presses. She refuses to confuse politeness with truth or access with authority. And throughout the entire conversation or during this confab, she does something institutions deeply resent and fear. She keeps the story open. Every time an answer seems to resolve one issue, she moves calmly to what still remains unresolved, to something else that doesn't align. She accepts acknowledgments. She accepts facts without really allowing them to function as absolution. Okay? She's very good at this. And she distinguishes this thing about suspicion from certainty. Without surrendering either. That's not recklessness. It's method. And when these communications are admitted, it doesn't allow the admission to erase bigger questions and bigger inconsistencies. Let me just explain this to you. This is critical stuff, my friends. This is critical stuff. You've got to understand this. I know you do. I don't mean to say like you got to understand, but I mean you've got to understand how this thing works. Candace distinguishes, again, this suspicion, kind of like we do. You can have a hunch about something, but that's not facts. That's not certainty. Okay? That's not recklessness. That's smart. It is method. When miscommunications are admitted, and this is critical, when miscommunications are admitted, she doesn't allow the admissions to erase or to absolve, the larger inconsistencies. This is even bigger. When attempts to explain or to justify something arrive after public certainty, she doesn't forget that the certainty came first. See, credibility isn't restored by statements. It's restored and it's reestablished by alignment over time with facts and with perceptions of correctness. And that alignment was missing because their story, TPUSA and Erika's story, and Erika, by the way, I think she's kind of dragged in, like, say something, and she's, by virtue of her position, not the best person to have done this. Now, one of the most important moments in the entire discussion comes when early claims about text messages are addressed. This is really good stuff. Candace had been publicly contradicted when it was said that no warning messages existed. You remember this one? Remember this story? Later, it was confirmed that the messages did exist, but on different platforms. You see, that correction matters less than the process that produced it. What do I mean? Institutions, you will find, they speak with confidence before verifying facts. Candace exposed that reflex by forcing the truth to emerge after the record had already been shaped. She's got the receipts. She didn't gloat. She marked it. And once again, the question survived. And what she does is she says, no. Here are the facts. This is what happened. And the same pattern, by the way, appears with the camera footage and the individuals involved. You see, interesting, Candace, she has not like the eye of the prosecutor. Candace doesn't accuse, she explains why trust has been eroded. Small inconsistencies, shifting explanations, language that slides instead of settles. My friend, audiences notice these things. And even when they can't really articulate them or say, this is why, they know something's up. And Candace can do this very, very well. You know this. See, she trusts instinct sharpened by pattern recognition that only can be accomplished by having a tremendous appreciation for the facts, a recitation, an ability to deal and marshal the facts. And by the way, she refuses to ignore simply these things because doing so would be more comfortable. She is indefatigable. The so-called magic bullet moment, which is very interesting, crystallized everything. When symbolic language replaces forensic explanation, skepticism hardens. Healthy bone density, miracle framing, man of steel rhetoric. Candace didn't mock it. She questioned plausibility. She pointed out how quickly tragedy was being wrapped in myth. The internet noticed because people are no longer passive consumers of narrative. They check, they compare, they remember. And that's really important for people to realize. And also perhaps maybe the most, you might want to say the consequential exchange involved the lawyer and the evidence. You see, what Candace learned and what the audience learned and picked up through her assiduous reference of the facts is that there is no hidden trove or source of conclusive proof already settled behind the scenes. What exists publicly is largely what exists now. And that revelation collapses the illusion of, I guess you would call this, overwhelming certainty. Candace didn't exploit it. She, in essence, contextualized it. Confidence without evidence is not authority. It's kind of nuts. But it's performance. It doesn't make any sense. And performance cannot survive any kind of sustained scrutiny. And that's what she's also showing. The call logs underscore why Candace's approach matters. And by the way, these aren't gossip details. These are structural facts. Timelines shape narratives. When memory conflicts with data and fact, institutions like TPUSA lean on emotion. See, Candace leans on timestamps. There's nothing like having the receipts to say, no, here's the evidence. She doesn't accuse people of lying. She doesn't have to. She shows how stories evolve when details are simplified or selectively emphasized. She doesn't call people out. She's very polite. You don't have to call people out. See, that's where trust falls apart. Not through one dramatic lie, but through repeated oops, slippage, oops, this didn't make any sense, oop, it piles up. And what makes Candace Owens so formidable is that she cannot be exhausted or shamed into silence. She doesn't know the meaning of that. Shame or fear. She doesn't raise her voice. She kind of laughs sometimes. The laughing is even more devilish. She doesn't posture. She doesn't do performative outrage. No. She asks follow-up questions, and then she circles back, and she refuses to let discomfort and the sad nature of it end the inquiry. You see, that posture is intolerable to systems built on, again, this thing called optics, because it can't be managed. See, you can't placate it, you can't appease it, you can't wait it out, you can't trade access for compliance. That is why this meeting was necessary from their side and optional from Candace. Candace didn't need to do this. Remember, who benefited from this? Candace. Who thought they would benefit? TPUSA. And by the time Candace walked out, the power shift was complete. The story wasn't closed, it was clarified as unresolved, and it actually is even worse. Because now, instead of ending this, they should have just let this thing go. If the message would have been for Erika to say, listen, Candace, enough of this. Stop it. Back off. We'll make you a deal. If that was the intent, first of all, it wouldn't have been done. I don't know what the purpose of this was. The questions weren't answered definitively by any stretch of the imagination. They were validated as legitimate, and that is victory. Not because a final conclusion was reached, excuse me, but because premature certainty was prevented. In a media culture that's addicted to, I hate this word, closure, finality, neat little narratives and bows and tide and emotional resolution, Candace did the opposite. She kept the file open. She kept the questions open. She made it impossible to memory hole inconsistencies. No, that's the beautiful part about this. She showed the difference between image management and the way they're trying to do it, and truth seeking without conceding any ground. That's how good she is. See, I'm giving you the overview. This is what happens. And by the way, this matters far beyond the case. It shows how leverage works now. Not through credentials or positioning or, TPUSA backing anything, or access, but through persistence, clarity, and the refusal to accept narrative and narrative finality. Candace Owens didn't walk into that room to be redeemed or corrected. She didn't need it. She didn't need this at all. She walked in to make sure the question survived, and also to show that she's not going to back down, and to call their bluff if a bluff was intended. And again, Erika was not the person to do this. I'm sorry. She doesn't know enough of the facts of the case, because she wasn't involved in any kind of conspiracies at all. She was reacting. She's trying to do the best she can. Listen, and the fact that she's doing well financially is not in any way hard to understand. Candace Owens came out stronger, more powerful. She was really the recipient of this. That's where this went. That's where it went. Because remember something, which is very critical. Why this happened at first. Remember, this happened in order to basically tell Candace to shut up. Shut up and go away. Go away. I don't know what you're trying to do, Candace, but enough is enough. And you're calling into question a lot of people, and you're doing this, and it's hurting Charlie and hurting Erika. No. She's doing it for Charlie. And, believe it or not, for Erika. It was beautiful. You're not going to see any more of those, by the way. You're not going to see anything. You know who ended up the victor? Candace. Because everybody said, I wonder what happened. Not They weren't asking Erika this. Erika is, I'm sorry, the mishkina, the poor thing. We don't have any feelings of ill will towards her. We feel sorry for her. And what they've done to her and what she's had to endure is absolutely catastrophic. My friends, I want you to understand something. Why this case means a lot to me is, I told you before, because they started off saying that Candace Owens was crazy. Crazy just because she asked questions. And I will not abide that. Period. End of discussion. All right, my friends, what do you think? Please do me a favor. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. I've got some questions for you to answer. Thank you so much for your kind words. The comments have been so terrific. I've normally kind of avoided comments because they can be cruel. I thought, well, let people speak. But I happened to peruse some of them, and they were incredibly nice, and I thank you for that. I thank you, but I hope the good words were because of my approach and my particular take on this. In any event, thank you. Have a great and glorious day. And comment, please subscribe, and comment as you see fit.